This discovery, the moment no one saw coming, and the one that could change everything we thought we knew about Alaska's gold fields. In the final days of the season, when the storms were closing in and the permits had already expired, Emily Riedel made a call that shocked her entire crew. One last dive, one last chance. What she found beneath the freezing grey waters of Nome wasn't pay dirt, it was history itself. At first, her sonar showed nothing but the usual silt and rock. But then, a flat, metallic return. Something solid, something man-made. Moments later, Emily's dredge pulled up what no one on the Bering Sea had ever seen before. A sealed crate of solid gold bars, stamped and dated from World War II. As the surface crew looked on, more metal appeared, more gold than any dredge in Alaska had ever brought up. When the final count came in, the total stunned everyone. A $130 million gold hoard, buried for over 80 years beneath the ice. And here's the craziest part. The deeper scans suggest there's even more still down there. Before we dive into the full story of Emily's unbelievable discovery, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what happened next will blow your mind. By the final week of the Alaskan gold season, most dredging crews had already called it quits. The waters near Nome were freezing, the winds howled through the Bering Strait, and ice was already creeping across the shoreline. But Emily Riedel, captain of the Eroica, refused to leave. Her instincts told her the riverbed still had secrets to give. On September 26, 2024, after 32 straight days of minimal yields, her crew had packed their gear, ready to sail home. The pay streak had run dry, at least that's what the data said. The sonar readings showed nothing but cold silt and fractured bedrock. Yet Emily couldn't shake a feeling, a shimmer in the gravel beneath the setting sun that didn't look ordinary. She stayed behind with just 2 divers, deciding to make one final scan before the season closed. "If we're going to go broke," she told her crew, "we'll do it chasing our instincts, not our fears." The metal detector gave off a faint, broken signal, nothing anyone would usually trust. But Emily ordered the dredge lowered, digging through thick clay that hadn't been touched in years. At first, nothing. Then suddenly, under 2 feet of compacted silt, the suction hose pulled up something different, heavier, metallic, and bright. When she washed the first pan under the cabin light, gold flakes flashed like stars. It wasn't dust, it was coarse, deep-layer gold, the kind that hinted at a pocket no one had mapped. By morning, her readings were showing gold-rich sediment stretching nearly 40 yards downstream, a streak untouched since the late 1940s. That hunch turned into a full-scale dive, and the results were staggering. Over 4,300 ounces of gold pulled from just one narrow run of the riverbed. In today's market, that's roughly $10.2 million worth of gold in a single 48-hour haul. But that was only the beginning. Emily's instinct-driven decision sent ripples through the Alaskan mining community. Other crews, hearing of her find, returned to claims they'd already abandoned. Yet none struck anything close. The truth was, Emily had hit a geological pocket, a collapsed layer of glacial gravel where fine gold had concentrated over centuries. No satellite imaging or sonar could have predicted it. She later told a reporter, "Sometimes the gold hides where your gut tells you to dig, not where the maps tell you to look." And that became her mantra. It was a reminder that in an industry ruled by data and luck, intuition could still change everything. But even as Emily celebrated the discovery, she noticed something odd. The gold wasn't from a natural placer vein. It looked refined, shaped, and mixed with metals, not native to that area. Some pieces bore faint markings, almost like stamped seals. It was a mystery, one that hinted at something far greater than a simple riverbed deposit. And so, just as her team thought the season had ended, Emily gathered them once more. There was still one test to run, one section of the river that connected to a deeper trench beneath the ice shelf. It was a gamble, one that could cost them their equipment or reveal something that would rewrite Nome's gold mining history forever. As Emily reviewed her sonar maps one last time, something caught her eye, a faint reading, deeper than their last dig, just outside the mapped trench. It was subtle, but it pulsed with the unmistakable density of metal. She closed her laptop slowly, her lips curling into a quiet smile. The season was over, but the river still whispered of something more, something waiting beneath the ice, untouched, unseen, and calling her back. After that gut-driven discovery in late September, Emily Riedel and her exhausted team could have easily called it a victory. They had already unearthed more than 4,000 ounces of gold in just 2 days, enough to make headlines across Alaska. But Emily wasn't satisfied. The readings showed a deeper layer beneath the original pocket, a dense gravel bed, compacted under years of shifting glacial flow. To most miners, it looked impossible to reach before the freeze, but to Emily, it looked like unfinished business. So, on the chilly morning of October 1st, 2024, she ordered her crew back into the icy river. The equipment was barely holding together, fuel reserves were low, and daylight lasted only a few hours. But Emily had a plan. She marked a section of the creek no bigger than a parking space and started small, just a single shovel of mud into the pan. The first wash glimmered faintly, a few bright specks catching the light. Not much, but enough to confirm one thing. There was gold here, hidden deep beneath the silt. Most crews would have moved on. Emily did the opposite. She had her diver's rig, a portable sluice, just beside the riverbank, a compact system that allowed them to clean and test every handful of material. Every run told a story. One flake became 10. 10 turned to hundreds. Soon, the sluice mats were glowing with fine, consistent gold, proof that the pay streak was widening. By the third day, Emily ordered the full dredge operation back online. The readings confirmed a continuous pay layer stretching over 60 yards, rich with placer gold and small nuggets, the kind that meant the source was near. Over the next 9 days, the crew extracted more than 11,200 ounces of raw gold, roughly $27 million in value, setting a personal record for the Eroica. But for Emily, this wasn't about luck. It was about patience and precision, a lesson every miner learns the hard way. She told her crew, every big find begins with a single scoop. The difference is, some people stop too soon. By October 10th, the discovery zone had expanded to include an untouched river fork, one dismissed years earlier after yielding almost nothing. Emily decided to test it again. With her dredge now modified for cold operations, she ran a controlled scan, digging just 6 inches deeper than the old claims. That's when the detectors went wild. The new readings showed extremely dense mineral concentrations, far higher than anything seen in the region. The crew, though exhausted, pushed on for another 48 hours, and what came next stunned even the most seasoned miners. As the gravel came up, coarse gold nuggets, some weighing over 12 ounces each, tumbled through the sluice. The river was hiding a treasure line, a natural deposit formed by centuries of glacial movement and erosion, funneling the gold into one perfect channel. The operation quickly turned into one of the largest small-scale recoveries ever recorded in Nome's river systems. Experts estimated the find could total $130 million once the full area was mined and refined. But the true marvel wasn't just in the quantity, it was how it began, with a single shovel of mud and a crew that refused to quit. And yet, even as they celebrated, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the river wasn't done revealing its secrets. Her sonar team had noticed a strange anomaly, a hard metallic signal buried even deeper beneath the gravel layer. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't gold ore. Something artificial lay hidden in the bedrock, something man-made. Emily decided to go deeper. Against all odds, against the weather, and against every warning, she prepared her team for one final push into the frozen channel. That next dive would become known as the storm, the moment when nature itself fought back and the gold nearly cost them everything. By the middle of October 2024, Emily Riedel and her crew on the Eroica were pushing the limits of human endurance. Nome's mining season was supposed to end weeks earlier, but the promise of untapped gold beneath the river kept them there. They had already pulled in more than 11,000 ounces, yet Emily knew there was more. Readings still showed dense mineralization deeper in the channel. But Alaska doesn't give up its treasures easily. On October 14th, disaster struck. The sky darkened with rolling clouds, winds climbed past 60 miles per hour, and freezing rain began hammering the camp. Within hours, the dredge's primary intake line froze solid, the pumps failed, and the suction hose cracked under pressure. The claim turned into a river of mud and chaos. The other crews pulled out, anchoring their boats before the ice took them. Everyone told Emily to do the same, but she refused. "This storm's not here to stop us," she said over the radio. "It's here to test if we deserve the gold." Working under floodlights and biting wind chills, Emily's crew stripped the dredge apart piece by piece. Bolts were tightened by hand. Frozen fuel lines were thawed with heat guns. Divers took shifts every 45 minutes to keep the pumps from locking up. The temperature dropped below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and visibility vanished. Yet they kept going, soaked, cold, and driven. By midnight, the storm had grown violent enough to tear loose one of the support anchors. The dredge began drifting, threatening to capsize. Emily herself waded waist-deep into the icy torrent, helping secure new lines while shouting orders over the roar of the wind. It was survival mixed with madness. But that night, something incredible happened. When the storm finally broke just before dawn, a strange calm swept the river. The water level had dropped slightly, exposing a stretch of untouched bedrock that hadn't been visible before. The storm had literally carved open the river's hidden floor, clearing centuries of silt and debris. Emily saw her chance. Within hours, the dredge was running again, pulling from that newly revealed section. What poured out of the sluice stunned everyone. Thick, coarse gold, chunks of it wedged between black sand and gravel. The cleanup mats glittered like a sunrise. The crew collected over 5,600 ounces in 36 hours. Roughly $13.4 million worth of gold washed from ground. The storm itself had exposed. Emily later said, "The river took everything from us that night, time, strength, even warmth. But it gave back more than we imagined." It was a turning point, proof that endurance through chaos leads to clarity. The storm had been the enemy and the ally all at once. By October 18th, the skies cleared and Emily's team began stabilizing the area. But the storm had done more than shift the river. It had unearthed something else. When the divers went deeper to anchor the dredge, they struck a layer of compacted clay and metal fragments, unlike anything natural. The detectors went wild, not with the sound of gold, but with something stronger, denser, and unnatural. Emily ordered the dredge repositioned over the site. Beneath the sediment, sonar revealed a large metallic object buried roughly 12 feet below. Its shape was uneven but structured, almost like a crate or container. The crew exchanged silent looks. This wasn't just another pay layer. Whatever it was, it didn't belong there. Emily knew they had to dig carefully. One wrong move could destroy it or bury it deeper. But she also knew what her instincts were saying. They were standing on the edge of something extraordinary. That next dive, under calmer skies, would mark the beginning of the chapter known as the depth, where they'd learn that the richest gold sometimes guards a far greater secret. After surviving the brutal October storm, Emily Riedel and her crew had earned every ounce of gold they'd pulled from the Alaskan riverbed. Most miners would have packed up, content with their season's fortune. But Emily wasn't most miners. The storm had changed the river itself, exposing a section of ground unlike anything her sonar had ever recorded. At first glance, it looked barren. No color, no visible pay streak. But something beneath the silt caught her attention. Tiny flecks of gold trapped deep within a layer of heavy gray clay. It was October 20th, 2024, the season's final week. Temperatures were dropping below 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ice was thickening across the river's edges. Crews nearby were shutting down operations, hauling their equipment back to Nome before the freeze locked them in. Emily, however, saw potential in what others dismissed. "If the gold's hiding under that clay," she said, "then that's where we dig." The readings from her scanner were faint but steady. The first few pans yielded almost nothing, a few pinhead-sized specks at best. But Emily wasn't chasing surface gold anymore. She was chasing what lay beneath. Against her crew's advice, she ordered the dredge to cut 3 feet deeper than standard operating depth. It was a risky move. The deeper they went, the more unstable the riverbed became. Hours passed. The pumps strained, the suction slowed, and the divers fought zero visibility as mud clouds rose from the trench. Then, suddenly, the sound changed. The suction hose hit something dense, compact, and granular. When the first cleanup tray came through, the crew fell silent. The gold wasn't dust anymore. It was thick, coarse, and glowing, the kind that hadn't seen sunlight for centuries. In just 48 hours, they recovered 9,800 ounces of gold, valued at nearly $24 million, all from a narrow trench, less than 20 feet long. The deeper they dug, the richer the yield became. The discovery confirmed what Emily had always believed. The best rewards wait below the surface, where most people stop looking. But as they pushed even deeper, the dredge began pulling up something unexpected. Chunks of oxidized metal and carved wooden fragments, all buried within the gold-rich clay. Some pieces looked hand-forged, others machine-cut. It wasn't natural debris. When cleaned, one of the metal shards bore faint inscriptions, a serial number, partially erased by time and corrosion. Curiosity replaced exhaustion. Emily immediately halted gold extraction and ordered a careful excavation around the site. Using small suction hoses, they uncovered what appeared to be the edge of a large structure, almost like the corner of a container. Sonar imaging revealed straight lines and riveted joints, man-made, no doubt. The discovery baffled everyone. Had they stumbled upon remnants of an old shipwreck, a wartime cache, or something deliberately buried and forgotten? Emily could only guess. But one thing was certain. This was no ordinary pay layer. Beneath the river, They had found a sealed chamber-like vault packed within the same sediment that held the gold. By October 23rd, as they expanded the trench, the detectors screamed at near maximum output. Gold readings spiked again, this time surrounding the buried object. Whatever was inside, it was surrounded by concentrated gold dust, almost as if the current had been feeding around it for decades. As Emily's crew prepared to break through the final clay barrier, the current shifted suddenly. The suction hose jolted, and a flood of shimmering gravel poured out, laced with raw gold nuggets and pieces of metal plating. They had struck the heart of the deposit. The clay collapsed inward, revealing a hollow pocket no larger than a small room. And inside, the glint of something massive waited in the murky dark. Emily's instincts told her they were standing at the threshold of something historic. But before they could fully clear it, winter roared back across the river, sealing the surface in sheets of ice. The equipment froze. The dive lights dimmed. They would have to leave the discovery buried, at least for now. Yet Emily knew this wasn't the end. The sonar scans, the readings, the fragments, all pointed towards something hidden below that clay, something that didn't belong in a river. And as her team packed for the long Alaskan winter, she promised they'd return in spring to finish what they'd started. Because sometimes, she realized, the gold is only the beginning, and the true treasure lies in what the earth tries hardest to keep buried. And that's where the next chapter, the team, begins, as Emily rallies her crew to return stronger, smarter, and united to uncover the secret that could rewrite Alaska's mining history forever. The discovery beneath the riverbed had changed everything. It was now October 25th, 2024, and Emily Riedel's team stood on the edge of what might be the richest find in Alaska's modern mining history. They had already pulled over 25,000 ounces of gold, worth nearly $60 million, but the newly exposed trench promised far more, perhaps double that. Yet, the deeper they went, the harder the work became. Machines jammed from sediment buildup, fuel reserves were dwindling, and the relentless cold was breaking both metal and morale. The crew was running on fumes, both physically and emotionally. After weeks of battling storms, freezing waters, and sleepless nights, tempers flared. A heated argument broke out on the dredge deck when the suction pump seized again. Some wanted to shut the season down. Others accused each other of pushing too hard for numbers that didn't matter anymore. For the first time, Emily saw her crew, her family, beginning to fracture under the weight of success. That night, the wind howled through the camp. Emily's foreman, a veteran diver named Jack Murdoch, quietly gathered everyone around the fire barrel near the dredge. The air was silent, except for the crackle of burning driftwood. He looked each of them in the eye and said, "We either dig together or we dig our own graves. The gold's not worth a damn if we can't look each other in the eye when we cash it in." His words hit hard. There was no shouting, no argument, just quiet nods and the realization that they had come too far to fall apart now. By morning, something had changed. The cold still bit just as deep, but the rhythm returned. The crew moved like one body, fixing jammed lines, welding broken brackets, clearing ice from the sluice, and keeping the pumps alive. Emily worked alongside them, knee-deep in mud, refusing to stand apart as captain. Every bolt turned, every cable tightened, every pan washed. It was teamwork in its purest form. By October 27th, the operation was back to full strength. The dredge ran smoother than it had all season. They reopened the lower trench and began feeding material at a steady pace. Not rushing, just perfect timing between man and machine. And when the first cleanup trays came through that evening, what spilled out stunned them all. Over 7,400 ounces of pure gold in a single 24-hour run. The biggest one-day haul of Emily Riedel's career. The sluice mats glowed as if lit from within, heavy with nuggets the size of marbles. There was no shouting this time, no chaos, just a deep, shared silence as everyone watched the river reflect the light of their labor. Emily later said, "That night, I realized the gold isn't what makes us rich. It's these people, the ones who show up, no matter how hard it gets." The teamwork and discipline carried them through the season's final push. Every diver, every mechanic, every deckhand moved in sync, and by October 31st, they had recovered a total of 41,600 ounces of gold, worth over $100 million. Yet, even as they celebrated, Emily's mind was elsewhere, on what still lay below. The sonar readings taken just before shutdown showed one final anomaly, a hollow section beneath the vault site, deeper than they had ever gone. It wasn't rock, it wasn't clay, it was empty space, surrounded by gold-heavy sediment. Emily gathered the team in the dim light of their last night at camp. The river was freezing over fast, but her voice was steady. "This isn't over," she said. "We've found the gold. Now we find the truth about what's buried beneath it." And as the first snow began to fall, the crew prepared for their final descent. One last dive before the ice sealed the river completely. That dive would lead them into the cleanup, where the true reward of their journey and the mystery beneath the gold would finally be revealed. By late October 2024, Emily Riedel's season was supposed to be over. The temperature in Nome had dropped below freezing, and sheets of ice were beginning to form across the inlet. Yet inside the dredge cabin, the hum of machinery still echoed through the night. The team wasn't stopping. Not now, not after everything they'd endured. The numbers already defied belief. In just under 4 months, Emily and her crew had pulled over 41,600 ounces of raw gold, worth close to $130 million at current market value. It was the biggest single-season haul ever recorded by an independent Alaskan dredge. But even as the final cleanup began, no one cheered. There was a stillness in the air, a mix of exhaustion, awe, and quiet reflection. The sluice mats were heavy, thick with dark sand and gold-packed concentrate. For hours, the crew worked in silence, rinsing, panning, and separating every last flake under floodlights that shimmered across the deck. Each tray brought another cascade of yellow. The scales groaned under the weight. 100 ounces, 500 ounces, 1,200, until the buckets lined the deck like trophies of mud and sweat. Emily leaned against the railing, watching the gold pile higher, her breath fogging in the cold air. Months earlier, this same deck had been filled with tension and doubt. The storms had nearly destroyed their operation, the dredge had cracked, and the team had nearly fractured. Now, standing amid more gold than most miners see in a lifetime, Emily realized something quietly profound. The gold wasn't the victory, the people were. "The gold fades," she said, "but this stays." Her logbook entry from that night was short. Final count, 41,623 ounces. Value, $129.7 million. Crew safe, equipment retired, worth every second. As dawn broke, the first rays of light struck the piles of gold, still sitting on the sorting table, turning them into rivers of fire. But the river still whispered of something more, something waiting beneath the ice, untouched, unseen, and calling her back. Because in Alaska, every ending is just the start of the next discovery.